this book, and I feel this little void inside me. Those are the kind of books that you can read in a weekend easily. I want more of it. There is an illusion that many things are happening here, but they're actually not. So yeah, a little awkward. I like to be disconnected from the real world as much as possible. Hello friends, my name is Alina. Welcome back to my channel where we talk books, fantasy, sci-fi, a little bit of crafts, a little bit of magic, all the best stuff. In today's video, I want to dive into all the books I read in January and February, and let me tell you, it's been an amazing start to a reading year so far. I can't wait to tell you all about it. We're gonna have some epic fantasy, cozy fantasy, some fairy tales, Slavic folklore, and even a sci-fi with socially awkward murder bots, so it's gonna be very interesting. Grab yourself some tea, make yourself cozy, and let's talk books. Okay, never mind me, I'm just trying on different personalities, so bear with me. First up, we have Extraordinary by V.E. Schwab. This graphic novel expands on the world of wishes, and if you love morally grey characters and superpowers that come with a cost, this one's for you. It follows Charlotte, who gains the ability to see people's death after a near-death experience, including her own. Now she's on the run from those who hunt people like her. So I got this book when I went to New York for Christmas, and this is actually my first time reading graphic novel, and I guess I wanted to ease myself in with like a compromise because I already know V.E. Schwab, I already like her work, and when I saw this graphic novel I thought, hey, that's perfect, I already know this author, it's probably gonna be easier for me to dive into graphic novel. And while I think this is a great short story, I feel like I made a small mistake by reading it because I thought it was a standalone kind of story. And apparently this is part of Vicious universe, which I haven't read yet, and this graphic novel is technically a short story after the first book, Vicious. So yeah, a little awkward, I didn't know about that before reading this, so I feel like I have spoiled some moments that I would have enjoyed from the previous book. And I don't think I can rate this book properly because I don't feel like I have enough context for it. So for me, the beginning was amazing, but the whole story felt a little rushed. I feel like that's the nature of graphic novels. You have some limitations in terms how long do you want to explain some things, right? So my inner feeling was to give this story 3 stars, but I feel like just because it was the wrong sequence for me, I didn't have enough context, and it's my first time actually reading graphic novel, I think that's partly why I felt this way, but in another circumstances I feel like I would have enjoyed it more. So yeah, that's my honest review. But other than that, I absolutely loved the beginning of it, the premise was amazing, I loved the art, I loved the characters. I just felt like I made the wrong call with starting with this one before reading Vicious, so you know, maybe you won't make the same mistake. Read Vicious first and then check out this graphic novel. Next, I picked up When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. This book weaves Slavic folklore into a dark, gripping tale. We follow a monster hunter cursed by fate and a mischievous trickster bound to her by magic. Their uneasy alliance takes them into a world of spirits and ancient legends. Think hauntingly beautiful storytelling with a dash of danger. Okay, I have a soft spot for Slavic folklore because I was raised on it. And while I really enjoyed an interesting spin on Slavic folklore here, I can't say I enjoyed this book a lot, but that's due to my personality. I guess I'm not a huge fan of urban fantasy. So the premise of this book, while we follow some mythical creatures, Slavic folklore, it's still happening in kind of like urban environment, and I have enough of it in real life. I don't want it in my books. I like to be disconnected from the real world as much as possible. But hey, that's just my personality. It was an interesting story. It was fast-paced, interesting twist on Slavic folklore, some interesting character developments, but I felt like it should have been longer to make myself more immersed in it. Again, with this book, it's very short. I think it's 160 pages, and I feel like if the author made it a little bit longer and spent some time on deeper character development and maybe explain some of the motives, I would have enjoyed it more. Because again, it felt a little rushed, and it felt like I wanted just a little bit more. I felt like in this book we just touched on the surface of every character, we just touched on the surface of the world, we just touched a little bit on the lore and folklore and all the interesting creatures and how they live in urban environment, because as a concept I think this is very cool, but I wished it was longer. I wished the author developed this world and this idea a little bit more. I know we're gonna have second book coming in this year, so I will give it a try. Maybe there's gonna be more dive into this premise, but so far, yeah, I feel like I was missing some key points. It was just okay. The concept got me very hooked, very interested, but I can't say I was very excited about this book. I wanted more world building, I feel like. Okay, speaking about Slavic folklore, I finally finished the Grisha trilogy with Ruin and Rising. This was the ultimate showdown between Alina and the Darkling, and while I don't want to spoil anything, let's just say I had many feelings about it. The stakes were high, the sacrifices were real, and Ravka's fate hung in the balance. If you've been putting off finishing the series like I did, just read it. I don't know why I haven't expected it, but I really enjoyed reading this series, and I'm not sure, maybe it's very unpopular opinion, but I enjoyed books more than TV series. But one thing about it is, I guess it's stupid on my part. When the show got cancelled and I desperately wanted to know what's gonna happen next, I thought, hey, I will just read the books and I'll find out what's gonna happen next. Oh, if you read this book, you know that show pretty much covered it all. There was nothing more. And actually in TV show they added some part, I guess, to continue shooting this story, but there was actually the last part that happened in TV series. It was not in the book. So when I was reading the book and we were nearing this climax moment, and I saw that there's like only a couple pages left, I'm like, is this really it? Is this really how it's gonna end? And I can't say that it was a disappointment. I feel like it's a very logic ending to this kind of book. But I guess I had some kind of weird expectation that this interesting twist on Alina is gonna continue in this book and I'm finally gonna find out how it's gonna play out. But it was not in the book. All in all, I think I liked the third book more than the second. The first book in this series I think is still my favorite. The second book was a little bit on the slower pace, but I still enjoyed it. This one was very fast-paced, action-packed. Lots of things unfolding, and it was a very bingeable read. It was very engaging, very bingeable. I loved my characters, I loved all the emotions that it provoked. Maybe because I already knew what's gonna happen, it kind of dampened my level of emotions for me, because I already know what to expect, even when our characters go through some interesting developments. But yeah, I think it's still a 5-star for me. Just one thing, but it's on me. I was expecting for some reason continuation of this twist and it was not here, and I feel this little void inside me with that alternative story development, and I don't know. I think this is the thing that's gonna itch me forever now, so here you go. Okay, next, let's talk about something more cozy. This book. This book became my Roman Empire of January. It was so amazing. It was so endearing. The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie is a breathtaking, spirited away-esque journey where a girl sacrifices herself to the sea god to break a curse on her homeland. But when she arrives in the spirit realm, she discovers he is trapped in an enchanted sleep and she has to navigate a world of gods, demons, and fate itself. This one was pure enchantment. If you love dreamy, folklore-inspired fantasy, you need to read this. Did I tell you already that this book was just so endearing, so enchanting, and for some reason it even awakens some deeply emotional part within me, maybe because it touched on topics of ancestry and parental wisdom, and I guess at the time I was missing my parents so much, and some things just touched me on such a deep and I guess emotional level. Like I said, many people compare it to Spirited Away, even though the premise is similar, but the story unfolds differently. I absolutely love the characters. They are very young, but they don't act their age because due to some circumstances they had to age earlier, and the decisions and thinking that they do, it reminds me of a very wise people. And I absolutely love it in the books when I don't find main characters annoying. This is a very important part of an enjoyable book for me. Please, please, please read it. It's very cozy, it's very nice. It's cozy, but it has some high stakes, don't get me wrong. There are some things when I wasn't sure about my main characters. I was very worried. I didn't know how it's gonna unfold. At some point I thought it's gonna end sad and then not, and then it gets sad. So you know, it's very cozy, it's very enchanting and atmospheric, but still with high stakes. And I love it. Absolutely love it. My favorite book of January. Okay, next up, another books of V.E. Schwab. I don't know, maybe with Extraordinary she scratched some itch and I just wanted to read more of her work. We have The Darker Shade of Magic and The Gathering of Shadows. It's first two books in Shades of Magic trilogy. These books take us to a world where multiple Londons exist, each with a different level of magic. Cal, a rare magician, smuggles something he really shouldn't have, and now the balance of this world is at risk. Add a sharp-witted thief, an epic magical tournament, and some serious character growth, and you have a series that's impossible to put down. So yeah, like I said, in this first book we follow Cal. He's a magician with a very rare skill, almost like one of a kind. He can travel between different Londons. Those Londons are kind of like parallel universes, so one London doesn't have magic or barely has a glimpse of magic. Another London, Red London, has abundant magic and non-magic that kind of like very balanced, and the magic is very organically entwined into the world. And we have the third London, White London, where the magic is overabundant, so it corrupted the people, it corrupted the world. So there are some scary and vicious things happening because magic kind of like has its own, I guess, energy and conscious in a way, and it corrupts the people. Absolutely love the premise, absolutely love the first book. I think I binged it in like 4 days. It was an amazing, fast-paced. Yes, we follow this magician Kel, but we also follow a thief named Leila or Lila. I don't want to spoil more, you just have to read this book. It's very fast-paced, action-packed, very interesting world building, very interesting magic system. Amazing read, just amazing. And the second book is also amazing, but I think I gave this book, if I gave this book 5 stars easily. This one I was hesitating, and I'm probably gonna give it 4 stars because this book is much longer than the first one, and in this book there is some kind of like magic tournament, right? And I feel like it dragged for too long. So basically all this book is a setup for the third book, which I am of course gonna read, but I feel like it's too much to just set up. There is an illusion that many things are happening here, but they're actually not. We're just kind of like observing how this tournament unfolds, and on the background, in each part of this book, we start with some gathering of shadows, right? We start with this gathering of dark force that is gonna launch full on in the third book. And yes, we end on a cliffhanger, things finally happened, and logically in third book we're gonna continue and we're gonna find out what's gonna happen. But I feel like for just the setup, it's too long. It was very interesting, very entertaining, again, very fast-paced, very bingeable, very easy to read, but I feel like we didn't need so much build-up. I mean, I appreciate it, but this whole book is just preparation for tournament and the tournament itself. And while it was super cool, super amazing, again, we have some character growth here, character change. Yes, I understand why it was needed, but I would have enjoyed it a little bit shorter. So I don't know. I still enjoyed it, but felt like it was unnecessary for setup to be this long. So, but I'm very excited to read the third book. It's gonna be on my March TBR for sure. Okay, we're done with some physical books, and I don't want to give you false hope that I only read physical books, because I just made a video on how to save on books and where I tell how to actually not buy hardcovers and paperbacks. But hey, those were my discounted books on my TBR. I wanted to finally read them, and I'm glad I did because I enjoyed my time so much. Let's switch to some other formats. So on my Kindle, I read the last part of Emily Wilde's trilogy, and I can't believe this series is over. I want more of it. I read it so fast. I can't believe I read it so fast. I want more of this world. I want more of these characters. I absolutely love the story, love the voice in which the book is written. It's just so endearing. But again, it gives this feeling that it's a cozy fantasy, but sometimes it actually takes some darker turns, darker world buildings, some vicious things are happening. So I guess it's cozy with a sprinkle of intense. Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. Emily, the grumpy but brilliant face scholar, is back for another adventure, this time unraveling lost fairy tales that may be more real than anyone expected. The series is cozy, whimsical, and filled with folklore, making it perfect for anyone who loves academia mixed with a touch of magic. And I think like it's a perfect explanation. I don't want to spoil it too much, but if you read first books in this installment, you probably know what to expect. So it's again epistolar type of story. Emily Wilde is writing in her diary about the events that are happening to her. In this third book, she travels to another place where she uncovers some interesting fairy stories with her companions. I never know how to talk about books that are second or third part in a series because I don't want to spoil too much, but I also want to vent a little bit. I'm just gonna save you the spoilers and I'll tell you, just read this book. It's so endearing. I love it so much. I can't believe the series is finished. I want more books like this in my life. Interesting thing about this book that this author is actually Canadian and she lives on Vancouver Island, and now I feel much closer to her and I feel like I get why I love this book so much, because I have such a connection with that place as well. And I feel like if you live on Vancouver Island, if you live in a place like that, this is exactly the kind of book you should be writing there. And those little special connections that I guess make sense just for me, but they made my experience even more wholesome with this book. So if you haven't checked it out, it was just released in February. I couldn't wait to read it, so I bought it and I'm very happy I did. Okay, next up we have some audiobooks. And actually January is the month when I finally started listening to audiobooks. Before that, I thought it was not my format. I couldn't perceive it, I couldn't comprehend it. I was constantly falling asleep and I thought, okay, this format is not for me. But then in January I got a new full-time job and I had to commute for a really long time and I had some work tasks that are tedious, and if you have something like music or audiobook in your headphones, it actually makes the process so much enjoyable. So I decided to give it another try to audiobooks, and it's been a good experience so far. So I decided to start with something shorter and something that I'm already familiar with. So first up we have Good Omens. I already know the story, I already read the story, I watched the TV show, and I decided that this is the perfect book to actually start my audiobook journey because I already know the story. So even if I zone out, I wouldn't miss some core events or I wouldn't miss on some important developments in the book. And it was actually very enjoyable because the audiobook was actually narrated by actors who played in a TV series, so I could already visualize it better. And actually it was such a fun and engaging read. I was always smiling because it was funny, I always got the jokes, I didn't miss any of the important events because I already know how everything unfolds, but it was so much fun to listen to actors again playing the story in my head by reading the actual book. So it was very fun. I love the story, I absolutely love Terry Pratchett's work and Neil Gaiman's as well. So yeah, it was a very enjoyable read. Time for some sci-fi. Alright, the last stretch, I promise. Next up, after Good Omens, I was listening, but I think it's better to say binging Murderbot series on audiobooks as well, because they are short novellas and they can also be a little funny, even though the stakes are much higher than in Good Omens, for example. But the story is also very engaging, very action-packed, and we have a main character who is a murderbot, but who is socially awkward. And I feel like that character is so relatable, and that's why we love this series so much. I read Artificial Condition, Rogue Protocol, and Exit Strategies. They're very short novellas. I think in audiobook it's like 3 to 4 hours, so I feel like I read one book in like 1 or 2 days. It's a very good, quick read, and it was perfect for me to get more used to listening to audiobooks. I absolutely love the narrator. I feel like his voice was perfect for the main character because the book is narrated from the point of view of this murderbot. Murderbot is a rogue AI who pretends it doesn't care about humans but keeps saving them anyways. Each book is packed with action, dry humor, and a reluctant hero who just wants to be left alone to watch his shows. I highly recommend it if you love AI protagonist with an attitude. I think this description tells it all, and I absolutely love this series. I recommend it to everyone to read because it's very funny, very engaging, while still keeping some action and interesting themes. I keep saying themes. Those are the kind of books that you can read in a weekend easily. So if you're short on time and you want some fast and fun read, those books are perfect. I enjoyed them immensely. I feel like I've been talking for so long, and that's a wrap on my January and February reads. Let me know in the comments which of those books you've read and which of those are on your TBR, or maybe you have different opinions of those books. Share it all in my comments, I love to talk to you about it. Hey, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to get more bookish content coming. As always, happy reading, and I will see you in the next one.